So, this reflection is about the importance of being an innovative practitioner. So I will be focusing on 3 of the professional standards. Standard 1, which talks about reflection, Standard 4, which talks about being creative and innovative, and Standard 15, which talks about promoting the benefits of technology and supporting learners in its use. So the question is, why does it matter to be innovative in education? And it does matter because the world is changing, and so we cannot continue to deliver learning the way that we've always done. It simply doesn't work anymore. We have to be creative, and we have to deliver learning in using different styles that meets different learning needs. And in doing so, we can use technology. However, it's not just about technology. Being innovative in education is more than just the use of technology. It's how the teachers can use technology to empower students so that they become lifelong learners. However, for the purpose of this reflection, we're going to also look at some ways that technology can be used to enhance learning. So we can use technology in something described as e-learning, which includes the use of numerous types of media that deliver texts, audio, animations, images. It could be computer-based learning, it could be web-based learning using a local intranet or extranet. Another way could be using the M-learning or the mobile learning. And now the mobile learning, it's about using mobile devices such as mobile phones or tablets or the handheld devices to facilitate teaching and learning. And M-learning is actually one of the latest developments in e-learning because it takes advantage of the fact that these mobile devices are easily accessible and they're portable and ideal for people on the go. M-learning is also particularly ideal for the younger generations because they're growing up using mobile devices to access the internet, but also to complete tasks as part of school or college work. The Department of Education has also highlighted the importance of technology in education, and so they have produced a series of documents, and this is one of the documents that they've produced. And in the document is this case study by University of Wolverhampton, where they use 3D visualization systems to supplement the more traditional lab-based type of lessons on anatomy and dissection. So in my reflection, I'm going to be focusing on using the Brookfield 4 lenses of reflections, Brookfield 2002. And I've chosen Brookfield as a model for reflection because I believe using Brookfield's 4 lenses can provide me with more balanced view of myself and my role as a teacher. So starting with the self lens, reflecting back to my days at School of Pharmacy, I noticed that my course was delivered using a variety of teaching methods, and that included lectures, we had tutorials, seminars, lots of practical classes in the lab as well, problem-based learning, and also self-directed study. However, the overall style of teaching was very much content heavy and very much teacher centered. So, viewing from the student lens, I noticed, however, that whilst I was on placement, that the curriculum used to teach these pre-registration pharmacy technician students mirrored the classic humanism approach. So the delivery is very much teacher centered, and very, very content heavy as well. To the point that one could actually argue that some of the content are irrelevant and do not necessarily meet the description of today's pharmacy technicians, perhaps not fit for purpose in practice. And this BTEC course is solely taught online, so for me it was safe to assume that the learners were quite familiar with ICT, albeit to a varied degree. The assumption was also based on the working practice as well, because to be able to work in a pharmacy environment, you have got to be familiar with ICT. But I did experiment using Adobe Connect, which is the system that is used to deliver learning. So I created quizzes using poll, and my learners engaged positively with this technology, mostly because they're quite familiar with it, so some other lecturers use that poll for quizzes. However, I did notice that some learners appear to be uncomfortable when it required using third-party applications such as Kahoot. So they were quite comfortable using the applications within Adobe Connect, but a little bit reluctant using applications outside of that. Also, prior to starting placement, I watched previous years and watched how the sessions were delivered, and I chose to integrate a more liberal, humanist approach to my style of delivering learning, because this approach involved the learners taking responsibility and control for a significant amount of their learning, rather than the traditional approach of me just stood there and just passing on the information, being teacher-centered rather than student-centered. And I've been on placement for a couple of weeks now, probably 2 weeks, and I received this feedback from one of the students. This was sent to my mentor. So this student recognized that I try to engage them in ways that they can keep them more active in the lessons and engaged. So being on placement has made me reflect upon the different styles of teaching and how other innovative ways can be brought into my lessons to make the sessions more student focused. And one of those innovative ways is the use of mind map. Now, a mind map is a diagram used to visually organize information, so that is drawing information in diagrams instead of writing it out in sentences. And these mind maps can be hand-drawn during a lecture or even as part of preparing for a session. So one good thing about the mind maps is the fact that it has a non-linear nature, which makes it easy to sort of link and cross-reference different elements of the map. So here's an example of a mechanism of actions of antibiotics using a mind map, and this I thought would really benefit my learners. Another example of using an innovative way of teaching that's not necessarily ICT based is the use of storyboard. And storyboard teaching is quite great in the way of teaching subjects that require step-by-step memorization or visualization of highly conceptual ideas, which is very common within pharmacy. So teachers can use, so as a teacher, I can use a storyboard to recreate a famous event. So that way I'll be stimulating activities and presenting complex ideas and making it easy for students to understand. Here's an example of a storyboard for patients with HIV. So technology makes material more interesting, and therefore the students and the teachers are more kind of media literate, and that's the benefit of this storyboard. However, there is the digital divide which needs to be aware of, and reflecting, I realised that this digital divide can also be found amongst my learners, and it's how I can mitigate that. The flipped classroom was another innovative way I thought about delivering learning to my learners. Because the learning is solely based online, I felt that using a flipped classroom teaching style could motivate students to prepare for the class, and it holds them accountable for their preparation and their engagement and their contribution. So it's like a team-based learning, and that dramatically and drastically shifts the focus of the classroom time away from content delivery to the application of the course content by students. So the class time will mainly be spent applying knowledge to solve problems more collaboratively, and then justifying and defending their decisions. So from the colleague lens, in terms of being an innovative teacher, I tend to watch previous years, like I said, to observe how the sessions were delivered, but also to learn from these teachers because they've been doing it a lot longer than I have, and also find ways to improve my own teaching style. I also tend to run my session materials with my mentor and ask for feedback afterwards, after the session. One of the feedback I got back from my mentor was not to run a Kahoot quiz, the first placement I had, just so I can give the students time to get familiar with my style of teaching. So, looking at the theory side of it, the theory's lens, be focusing more on the constructivism. I'll be discussing the constructivism theory as it relates with the flipped classroom setting. And Dewey is one of the key founders of this learning theory. So the constructivism learning theory emphasizes that in the learning activities, students are at the center position and they are active constructors of their learning. So in terms of the flipped classroom, self-directed learning mode, students learn how to learn and how to use knowledge and how to use the knowledge that they've learned to solve complex problems, while the teacher systematically arranges the courses for the purpose of integrating, exercising, and refining complex ideas and learning techniques. So the teacher's responsibility within this constructivism theory, teachers are responsible to promote self-directed learning. So the teachers alter their role from the traditional way of teaching into a facilitator role and a collaborator of students' learning. So that way students are expected to be more active and creative in order to achieve the learning targets in a collaborative learning way. However, the major criticism of this constructivist approach is the lack of structure. So some learners would argue that they need structured teaching in order to learn. However, the flipped classroom does offer the benefits of letting students take charge, letting students be the center of attention, letting them be the center of their learning and taking responsibility for that learning. Thank you.